All right, well, let's get going. And people, of course, can join in as they arrive. Welcome, everyone. I'm David Johnson. I'm a lecturing faculty member at the U, which means I spend most of my attention teaching in the undergraduate intro sequence, sometimes some higher division electives. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about both computer science in general and especially at the University of Utah. I'm going to give a little presentation here and one talking a little bit about what computer science is, and then talking about sort of the value of a computer science degree, and then talking about some specifics about the University of Utah. And feel free to either raise your hand in your picture window, raise your hand in the participant list, or add something to the chat, and we'll be looking at all those things as we go along. Or just speak. I mean, I didn't mean to discount that normal communication method either. So um, computer science, is a field I think that people have some preconceptions about. And, obviously it's a technical field. It's in the College of Engineering here, so it's considered an engineering degree, but it's not really just about learning technology. It's about logic and problem solving. And I think especially the part that maybe some people miss is that it's really about creativity, right? You're really trying to look at some sort of issue, some sort of problem, what tools you have available, and come up with some sort of innovative solution. And so there's a lot of creativity, I think, in programming and computer science. And I think that makes it, interesting. So what is computer science? Well, it's the study of what we call algorithms and computational machines. And basically, computer scientists invent solutions to problems. And that's the algorithm part. An algorithm is basically just a precise description of a way to solve a problem. So um, the reason we have to think about these problem solving approaches very precisely is because, of course, a computer has to enact them at some point. And so you can't just sort of wave your hands and say, oh, go give this a try. You have to actually say exactly what you want the computer to do. And that's what makes it both hard and interesting, I think. And then, of course, there's this idea that along with inventing solutions, you need something to run computational machines to run these solutions on. And so one aspect of computer science is thinking about machines, computers, to efficiently use these solutions. So I was talking about algorithms as sort of a core to computer science. And really, I think that is, this idea of taking a problem statement and finding some steps to solve a problem is really what we do. And I want to do that with you all. So I haven't actually tried this before, so we'll see if it works. I had to come up with a Zoom hands-on activity, right? So what I want is, if you look at our participant list, what do you notice about it right now? Like the order of it?
Alphabetical order by first name.
Yeah, it's alphabetical by the first letter, whatever your name is. So you can have, since you can all make your own name, it doesn't have to be like your actual first name, but whatever that first letter is, and then so on. And then there's a few other things you might notice about it. Besides, is everyone alphabetical? So someone else tell me something about it. If it's not completely alphabetical, what's different?
The host is at the top.
That's me. Yes. I'm always at the top. And no, I'm not sure, but maybe, is there one, are you, is where you are somewhere different too? Or are you alphabetical?
I'm at the top, and then the host is below me.
Yeah. So it's like you, the host, and then everybody else gets to be alphabetical, right? Now, I want somehow our participant list to be in reverse alphabetical order. I want, Z to be up top instead of A. And so that's the kind of problem we might, what's a process for doing it? Do we have the tools to make that possible? And then what's the process for making that happen, right? So that's kind of what an algorithm would be, and then sort of saying exactly how to do this. So, oops, what did I just do there? I'm in the participant list. So one thing that is important to do when you're trying to make an algorithm is to clarify the problem a little bit. And what does it mean by alphabetical? A lot of times you alphabetize things, it's by the last name. With Zoom, it's not clear what's first name and last name. So I think we're going to go just starting with the first letter of the name, kind of like Zoom already does. We're going to ignore the host, who's always up top. So you can't force me to be in this reverse alphabetical list. And you also be up top in your view, although for everybody else, we want you to be in the right spot. Okay, so that's a problem, right? And reverse alphabetical means Z, going backwards in the alphabet. So in order to solve this problem, we have to know a little more about how Zoom works, and we need someone who's a Zoom expert. I imagine many of you are kind of Zoom experts at this point, but whether you've explored it fully or not, that's another question. What can shift your position around? Does anybody know? Has anyone tried this or experimented with this? Okay, Jordan in chat said raising hand, right? So yeah, you're right. So that if you go to participants, click on that button on your screen, and then there's that participant box, and there's a raise hand button there. And for example, Andrew just raised hand, and wait a minute. Oh yeah, okay. So you're all raising your hand. Good. You're experimenting with this this new power, right? So what happened when you raise your hand?
Went to the top.
Went to the top. So we actually have some ability to move one person upwards. And is that enough to put us in reverse alphabetical order? So the question of what happens when there's two people that raise their hand? Should we try that? Do an experiment? Okay, so Nicholas just raised hand. Haley's raising hand. Jordan, okay, you're all raising your hand again. I'm kind of amused by this, to be honest. Now, what have we learned from this? Is there a repeatable behavior? Is there something specific what happens when multiple people raise their hand? Are we just randomly raising hand, or have we learned something here, do you think? Let's do an experiment. How about
I think once you raise your hand, you stay at the top, and then the next person to raise their hand is the next to the top.
Yeah, so actually Zoom is nice because if you raise your hand and you're like the host and you want to answer questions in order, the raise hand means that you can tell who wants to ask a question first, right? And so you can be a little bit fair about it and not just have like the lowest alphabetical jump in. Okay, so what we know is that raising your hand moves you in the participant list, and whoever, as long as you keep your hand up, whoever raised their hand first is higher in the list. So that's good. So how are we going to use that to solve our problem of getting reverse alphabetical? This is where we get to the algorithm part. Like, right, what's the process? Like, you're all just raising your hand. And you could just sort of do that randomly and hope that you end up in the right order, but you have to be a little more methodical about it.
You have to have the person with the last alphabetical name to raise their hand first, and then the next last, second, and so on.
Yeah, so you want, the person who's supposed to go up top should raise their hand first, and then the next person should do it. And we probably need to kind of think a little bit about how to do that. So here's our algorithm. I want everyone to look at the full list of participants and find the person who's one higher than them alphabetically. In other words, if you have your name starting with S, you want to find the person who might be T or U or whoever happens to be next. So you got to scan through the whole list here and find the person who is one higher alphabetically, right? Now it's hard because there's like Emma and Eric there. You have to think like, okay, so Eric is one higher than Emma. And you have to remember that person's name. So take a minute to do that. And then what's going to happen is, if there's no one higher than you, if you're Z-bar, someone, then you're the last, you should be at top. And you're going to raise your hand when we're ready to go. The person who sees that Z-bar is one higher than them should then raise their hand. The person who sees that person who just raised their hand is one higher than them should raise their hand, right? So you're looking for that person to raise their hand to be a trigger as to when you should raise your hand. Are we ready to give it a try? All right, who's the highest person? We figured that out? Oh, I don't even know where, and don't look at me. Don't look at David as the next highest person because I can't move, right? So just take me out of the list. Otherwise, and I haven't paid attention to who's going to be higher than me. So if you think that my name was the one that you're triggering on, don't do that. Okay, so Jan, very good. Okay, raise your hand. Okay, we got Jan, Nick. Someone should have found Nick. My name, good. Actually, reverse alphabetical is kind of hard, right? I have to kind of think. Anyone going off of the M? Miles McKenzie. That was a tricky sequence there. Leah, are you still there? She's my teaching assistant, and she's gonna be part of the next session, but she might be she might not be paying attention right now. She messed it up. So whoever had Leah LY as the next person, you gotta skip ahead. Okay. Jay, Jen, we're getting there. I thought it'd be a flurry of activity here. This is a very slow computer we're working on here. H, we're doing it. Who's left? Probably someone waiting for like maybe Emma. No, Jana. Okay, we're so close. The interesting guest one. Oh, you reorder yourself. That's good. There was a mistake and you still figured it out. Oh, look at this. We're even getting faster and faster. Oh, no, we're not. And we're there, right? Awesome. Great job, everyone. Round of applause. Our first Zoom computer algorithm. So anyway, that's the kind of process. I think, when you're writing, there's some problem statement, you have to clarify it. You have to think about what tools are available. You have to be creative and figure out how to solve it. Oh, we're still going, Andrew. And then you have to figure out some way to sort of be careful about how to describe the process of enacting the problem solution. It's one thing to say like, oh, raising your hand moves you up and it preserves the order. It's another to somehow make it so that everyone can actually make it happen. And you have to sort of force yourself to think very precisely and methodically about that. And so you did that, and that's a great job. I think that I'm very pleased, and I'm also pleased that maybe there's only 19 of us and not 52 or something like that, where it would take a super long time. But anyway, it's good, and I thought you were good about investigating the problem and good about coming up with potential solutions. Okay, so besides things like Zoom, computers are part of every field. And so there's a chance for, if you're involved in computer science, to pursue things that are also interesting in other ways to you. So for example, at the U, we have the Entertainment Arts and Engineering program, which is a game development program. And so if that's your thing, computers are obviously a big part of that. But I think, it's increasingly so that almost every field has some computer aspect to it. Medical stuff is very important. Some of my research I do has to do with like robotic surgical devices. And of course, that is a hot area and very interesting and has a lot of positive impact on the world. Stuff like space and robots, films. My graduate program was a lot in computer graphics, and a lot of my cohort went on to the film industry doing special effects. And that's a lot of fun for sure. There's been a lot of interest in self-driving car technology. And obviously, again, besides being a hard problem it's interesting to solve, it has the potential to save millions of lives and accidents a year. So computers can be both interesting and powerful, but also have a great positive benefit on society and humanity. So keep that in mind, that again, you can be part of doing something good by being part of computer science. And one thing that may attract you to the field of computer science is that it can be a lucrative career. There's some rough estimate here that if you're a computer science major, your expected lifetime earnings are 40% higher than your sort of average college graduate. And so it's an area where, you know, your skills are sought after and companies are interested in retaining you and training you. And there's, you know, it's a good source of money. The outlook for jobs is very good. So in computing, this chart's trying to compare the number of expected jobs over the next few years versus the number of students who are going to graduate with a degree. And you can see that in computer science, we're way out of whack here on the left. So computing, there's, you know, we're only making 50,000 grads a year, and they're expected to be like 500,000 jobs. Not a year, maybe this is a cumulative, I guess. Anyway, the number of jobs well outpaces the number of grads that are expected. And that's not, you know, in engineering in general, that's sort of true, but not as dramatic. And then in other areas, even other STEM areas, you can see that the job expectations are not in line necessarily with the number of people getting graduate degrees in that program. And in fact, if you look, again, you know, people talk about STEM, and again, that's a big encompassing area with a lot of, you know, science, technology, engineering, math, right? I mean, that's like this huge chunk of activity. So nearly 70% of new jobs in STEM are expected to be in the field of computing, whereas only 11% of bachelor's, BS degrees in STEM are in computer science. So again, there's this mismatch between the demand for the jobs and our ability to produce graduates. That's why we're encouraging you to join computer science and become a computer science major. So not only are CS degrees available and lucrative in the sense of salary, but they're also desirable. So if you look at, for example, at the US News World Report, software developers is #1 in 100 best jobs. And again, that's based on not only just the demand for it, but the fact that people like that kind of job as a career. So companies are innovative in ways to try to keep computer scientists and software developers happy. And the job itself can be rewarding in the sense that you need to be innovative and creative, and you're constantly training yourself in new technologies. So there's sort of exciting new things to learn. And you're working in teams typically. I know the sort of stereotype of a software developer, someone in their basement working in a dark room with like 10 screens around them or something like that. But the reality is that modern computer science is very much a team activity. And so besides, it's not like just a social thing, but like you have that sense of working towards a common goal. And I'll say also that certain skills like teamwork and communication are increasingly valued by employers. And so you should not neglect those in your studies. In other words, learn how to write well, technical writing, practice giving presentations, and learn how to be a good person that gets along with other people. And those are all things that are desired in computer science. Hey, any questions about any of this so far? I see some hands up, but I think they're probably just hands up from our experiment. So you can feel free to lower them, but you can just leave them up. It's not, you know, no big deal. No questions? Okay, let's learn a little about the School of Computing. So one, we're not a computer science department. We're a School of Computing. That's an administrative kind of thing. It means that we can offer multiple degrees. And it also just means have a broader purpose than just a narrow view of computer science. Our school is strong in many areas. We have a lot of people working on computer graphics and robotics, along with more traditional computer science emphases, you know, systems and security, programming languages and things like that. So we sort of have a bigger mission than just pure computer science. We're a top 40 ranked CS program. Essentially, we're, you know, either the best or tied for the best in the sort of whole Intermountain West area. You know, if you drive a long way in any direction, we're still the best ranked school. Our graduates have good or excellent, I'll say, average starting salary, close to $90,000. Out of state average is typically in the six figures, 100,000 and above. In states a little bit lower, but rising as Silicon Slopes becomes more and more competitive. most of our majors have jobs lined up before they graduate. And of course, many of them also are working either in internships or sort of a half-time kind of job as they go along. People, even after your first year, you probably have skills to get some sort of reasonable job. Okay, there's a question. How many CS undergraduates are there? Well, it's to be honest, that's a hard question to answer. We have what's called the pre-major and then major status. So basically you start off as a pre-major, you take 2 or 3 classes, and then you enter the major officially. And then there's how many people graduate at the end. Right now we're graduating about 150 majors a year. And there are in the intro sequence, the pre-major stuff, of course, there are also people taking computer science who are electrical engineers and math majors and people just interested in it. So, there's like 700 people in the first year taking the intro classes. And then as it becomes more just pure computer science, that number gets smaller. So anyway, it's saying, I can't even tell, it's like 1,000, 2,000, 2,000 undergrads over the 4 years kind of thing. But that number is not quite locked down because it's hard to say who like a CS undergrad actually is, but good question. And we have about 50 faculty in the department, which is like a medium-sized department. It's not like a super huge one, but it's also, I think there's a good balance there between sort of breadth of different interests and not being just so enormous. We've been trying to, as we've grown also, we've had more specific CS events. So for example, the last couple of years, we've had a CS specific job fair in the fall. And that's been a nice event because basically it's people who are looking for computer scientists come there. And the job fair is not only for just like jobs, but also internships. And so we have a lot of activities related to both jobs and internships, training, like practice interview stuff, or getting your resumes, just people coming in and talking about their company. There's a seminar where people come in and just sort of ask what it's like to be working at their company and the skills and things like that. And those are all valuable for getting you to understand, to prepare yourself for a career in computer science. But also, we are a big research department school, and we certainly have a fair number of students going on to graduate programs, masters and PhDs, either with us or elsewhere. So, we think we're preparing you both for the workforce and for further study if that's your thing. Money is always a concern with college, right? College costs are rising. I think as a big state school, University of Utah is, not bad, I'll say. It's considered fairly affordable, but if finances are a specific concern, I want you to understand as well, there's not only scholarships through the University of Utah, but the College of Engineering has its own set of scholarships. There's also a lot of opportunities to make money along the way. So we have teaching assistant jobs. We are a little unusual. We have a lot of undergraduates in our working with us and being teaching assistants in our classes. And I think that's a great experience. I love working with the teaching assistants. It's a great way to meet some undergrads more closely. And then you're part of a team, working on a class, and it's also a way just to earn some money as you go along. There's research jobs as well. So there's specific money available for working with a faculty member on some sort of research project. And again, great experience, especially if you're interested in going on to grad school. Maybe get a paper out before you go, and graduate schools love that, to see you as a published author. And then again, we have a lot of focus on internships and trying to get people to spend their summers working in industry and really picking up those skills that will make them great candidates for a job when they graduate, either in the place they're internship at that moment or just moving on to another spot. And we have recruiting, companies recruit not only locally, but the big ones, the Google and Microsoft and all of them. We have our past students coming back and helping recruit new students to those big companies. So if that's your big dream, working at Apple, working at Google, we certainly have a pathway to those companies. I think we have a good community in the undergrad program. There's professional organizations, tech clubs, mentoring from both students and faculty to newer students. and then just general campus activities. For example, one thing that's the last couple of years, we've had the Hack the U sort of 24-hour hackathon, and that's been a big successful event. It's student driven. They get a bunch of companies to contribute both technical things and prizes, and then you go and just have a big, big day trying to make an application all at once and sort of pick up a lot of skills along the way. So there's a lot of ways to get involved, and I think it's great, of course, in college to do what you can to get involved with other people, and get a cohort of friends and study groups and things like that. And I think that's a big part of our experience here. And then of course there's like the new Collart Tower dorm with a technical wing on it. So I know I'm teaching the sort of the CS 1410, which is the first main CS class we teach, and I know there's a fair number of my students in there who are living on the same floor, and it gives you a chance to kind of kick around ideas and study together and things like that. I think it's nice. Our students are hired by a lot of companies. Here's just a selected list. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs in town, the financial firm, NVIDIA, the computer graphics company, a bunch of other big companies that span the range from sort of like web tools all the way to hardware. L3Harris does satellite technology and stuff like that. So Recursion Pharmaceuticals is a newer company downtown doing computational medicine type stuff. So anyway, a whole range of companies. Certainly the Utah, larger Salt Lake City tech scene, Silicon Slopes is very well regarded nationally, and there's a ton of opportunities for careers in town, but also there's plenty of recruiting in other tech areas as well. So, again, we have a very high placement rate with excellent companies, and there's no indication that that's going to change anytime soon. So I think pursuing computer science is certainly a very reasonable career choice, both from sort of a enjoyment and safety point of view. We have a number of degree programs. So we have our standard bachelor's BS in computer science, and this is a pretty rigorous program, really covering all sorts of aspects of computer science, software development, computer systems, theory and applications. And I think one nice thing is that we end with this year-long capstone experience where you basically make a big project yourself. And that can be, a lot of people use that as sort of an entrepreneurial thing where they try to, maybe have some idea they might want to pursue even after graduating. You can do a computer engineering degree, which is a joint degree with electrical engineering. So it's like some classes from electrical engineering, some from computer science. Again, that's more of a focus on hardware systems. We have a new degree program in data science, which is a hot area. Basically, you're learning, besides standard computer science skills, sort of have an emphasis on sort of managing and analyzing data. And then there's a specialized track, the EAE track, which is the games program track, where it's basically a standard CS degree, but the electives are in the EAE games area. And then there's a minor in computer science, and you can also do a combined BS-MS program in computer science. This is a 5-year program. There's a question here: how many classes per semester does the average CS major take? Well, you're overall taking your 5 or 6 classes. Most people try to keep the CS classes down to 2, just because the sort of project load can get overwhelming if you're taking more. 3 is a lot of people take 3 CS classes as well, or at a certain point. But it is important. One problem some people have is that they come in with a bunch of gen ed credits from like AP or transfer or whatever, and they decide they're going to take 4 or 5 computer science classes a semester, and it's too much. So I'd just be careful about doing that kind of thing. You can learn more, of course, at our website, and welcome any more questions. I'm glad, Nicholas, you've had a couple questions. Anybody else have anything you want to ask? Someone says, what's the best time to apply for internships? Really, after you've taken, I think, typically the CS 1410, 2420, which are the first CS1, CS2 classes, you have some good skills for internship. So, and there's sort of freshman year internships. Some companies have a focus on really getting people going. But so a lot of times, basically, after your first or second year, you should get serious about doing internships. Nicholas is asking, what makes Utah CS program stand above other CS programs? There are a lot of great programs out there. but we have, again, I think a great mix of, especially for undergrads, we have dedicated faculty teaching the undergrad program. So we take I think a lot of interest and care in that. And then there's also, again, then these opportunities, research opportunities for all the different areas. And I think we have sort of a little more sort of interdisciplinary applied sense than a lot of CS programs. And so if you're interested in doing interesting things, I think this is a great place to go for that. And then of course, our setting is quite nice, I think. We're on the outskirts of an urban area, but we still have a lot of recreational activities in the mountains and so on to go to. And so that's a bonus. I think our on-campus facilities are increasingly nice, especially if you're going to live there. Good question though. Are there CS labs available to help with homework and projects? Oh, sorry, that was a direct message to me. I'm not sure what. Actually, one thing we also have, I think, with our TA group is that we have a lot of support. There are schools where essentially there's nothing. There's like, the professor assigns some homework and then that's it. Like my CS1 class, we have 15 teaching assistants, so there's a lot of help hours. I'm answering, I think I've answered 1,200 sort of messages about homeworks this semester, all times of the week. And another question would be job ready by the time you learn to graduate, learn the skills to be competent. Yeah, and again, I think you can ask that question, but the real mark of it is like, are people getting jobs, and everyone basically has a job. So, computer science is a fast changing field. You might be like, oh, I didn't learn a class on learning the Ruby language or something like that. Well, you're learning how to learn these different languages. You certainly pick up many of them along the way, but the idea is that you'll have skills to understand how to program in these different languages as they come up, and you'll learn the larger conceptual issues of how to structure programs well. And then we have courses. We have a little more software engineering courses than a lot of programs. There's basically 4 programming heavy courses plus then electives that have other, like web development kind of skills. But like our last course is like a group programming course that, you learn skills in sort of developing larger projects and so on, which is not unusual, but at least a little bit interesting there. All right, I think we better close this one up, and we're going to start another section in 5 minutes, which is going to be a panel with some current students talking about their experiences getting internships and other activities. So you're welcome to stay. I'm going to just sort of stop talking for a minute and stop the recording, but thanks for coming, everyone, and making the Zoom ordering a success. I had no idea if that was going to work or not. And then again, in a couple of minutes, we'll get rolling here. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then we'll sort of just sit awkwardly for a few minutes and then get going again.